part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast from the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, just a wonderful dais of sports legends here to talk about the Cavs play-in game loss against the Brooklyn Nets. Joining me, we have Sam Amico, founder, creator, writer, does everything, hoopswire.com. Sam, what's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you doing, Chase?
Dude, I'm doing great. I missed you guys a couple nights ago at the season recap. But thank you for forging ahead. And also big shouts to John Sable, John, Fox News 8, host of Sailor Brothers on the Baseline right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. John, thanks for filling in, man. You do such a good job with the show. Thank you. The bar is so high and I'm not very tall, so I don't have a very good shot in either way, but just thank you.
Hey man, it's been a fun ride this year. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. It's been great with you and with Sam, and we had JIA in a couple of days ago, so we had a blast. So hopefully the Cavs can keep winning and we can keep talking.
Yeah, man. And joining us, very special guest, one of my favorite people. He is an ESPN commentator. He's also hosting R&R with Kenny the Roadman Rhoda as well here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Michael Reghi. Reg, what's up, brother?
All good, man. Thanks very much for having me. It's a lot of fun to be joining you guys. Go a long way back with Mr. Amico in the Cavalier days of yore. And, of course, I've had a lot of conversations with John Sable about this Cavalier squad and all Cleveland sports, too. So I appreciate it and can't wait to start chopping this up. Although I'm mad about what happened tonight. I'm mad.
Sure. Well,
I love that passion. I love that.
Let's just lean into that, Reg. Why are you so upset? What's grinding your gears?
4 days ago, they just played this basketball team, the Brooklyn Nets, right? And listen, no, do they? Okay, I mean, the disclaimer first.
You're flustered.
I am. They don't have, the Cavaliers do not have Kevin Durant. They do not have Kyrie Irving. Okay. Those two are the two top players on the floor without question.
Turns out they're pretty good at basketball.
They are. That's fine. But as I said, you just played them 4 nights ago, right? You gave up a 36-point fourth quarter. You decided to play this JB Bickerstaff and your coaches. You decided to play this college, high school type rotate 2-3 zone or a 2-1-2 zone. And I'll be damned if they didn't come back out with the very same thing tonight and got lit up on a 40-point Nets first quarter when they shot 67%. Again, listen, I know that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to be a load and be very difficult for anybody in the NBA defenses. But you got to put some pressure on them. You got to make it difficult. You got to at least be physical as they come off screens. You can't give up a 40-point first quarter with them coming off balls, simple ball screens, and getting everything they want. And then, oh, by the way, I haven't even mentioned, is now DeAndre Drummond, is he the second? I tweeted out tonight. Was he Moses Malone now? That's how the Cavaliers made him look tonight.
I think he's four Moses Malones.
Bruce Brown, dumping the ball in the paint to him, just put it on the floor once and stroll his way to the rim. I'm sorry. As I said, I'm not trying to. The Cavaliers are better than the New Jersey Nets. But to me, you got to play with a far greater amount of aggressiveness and purpose against a team like that. You got to be physical against them. The Cavaliers were anything but, and that bothered me.
I love a fired up Michael Reghi. John, what are your instant reactions? I mean, how are you feeling? Are you right there with Reg?
First off, when you get a fired up Reg right out of the gate, you can't help but just be pumped up and run through a brick wall for him right now.
I'll calm down a little
bit.
No, I mean, he's 100% right. I didn't see the passion. I didn't see the hustle. I didn't see everything that we've seen before with them. I think the fact that you talk about Andre Drummond having a monster game. I mean, the Cavs just showed how much they lacked inside presence without Jared Allen. I mean, we really knew he wasn't going to play, but you are really exposed on the inside. He is a bad matchup for Evan Mobley. He's bigger than Evan Mobley. Mobley may get there at some point in time, but now is not the time. And I mean, they gave up too many easy points in the paint tonight. They gave up too many easy buckets just in general. The defense was not nearly as consistent as it has been. We can go down the line of what was going on with the rotations from JB Bickerstaff sitting guys at certain times. The fact when Kyrie Irving sat out, I think it was in the third quarter, that's when the Cavs made their run when Irving wasn't on the court. It's the opposite of what you thought it would be with KD on the court. And, just sitting there watching that, you missed easy buckets. You missed opportune times to chip that lead. They cut the lead within 5 way too late, and they just ran out of gas. They ran out of steam, ran out of momentum. I mean, we could talk about the LeVert problem. I mean, Sam and I have been talking about this in the pod the last month or two, Reg and Chase, about him and Okoro too. The last episode, we honed in on those two guys, and those two guys did not really help them at all tonight.
Okoro, 13 minutes. I don't think he saw the court at all in the second half. LeVert just didn't seem very explosive. Really, really quiet. I have his stats right here.
He didn't shoot the ball well tonight, guys. But when you again, I'll give you that. He started out 1 for 9 and wound up 4 of 12.
12 points.
12 points. I've always said, to me, Karras is going to get you 16 to 18, but he's not a pure shooter, guys. And any Cavalier fan, he's never been, but he is a slasher and he can get to the rim. Yeah. And if you notice tonight too, he did play 40 minutes, but he also had, I think he had 8 boards and 7 assists tonight too. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to tell you he played well, because you need LeVert. LeVert's biggest thing on this team is to go get him. As I've said, you got to get 16, 18 a night from Karras. And there's going to be nights he's going to get you 22 or 23 against certain matchups. He is a valid NBA point producer.
But Michael, think about this though. We talked about this in the last podcast. LeVert has only been able to score over 20 points twice since being traded to the Cavs. And there's just no consistency there where you think, yes, he's capable of doing it. He just hasn't been able to do it since being traded. And Sam has brought this up many times. And Sam, chime in here. You can credit that to a chemistry issue with trying to find his spot in this rotation, but also knowing his teammates. It hasn't helped that his teammates have been a revolving door of injuries over the last month and a half. And then finally you're somewhat healthy without Allen, and that's the wrong time to gel.
Well, nice. Sam, go real quick. And this is difficult to say because it's probably going to come off like, that I'm criticizing, and I'm not. Darius Garland is a terrific lead guard in this league, and he's going to do nothing but get better. But the other night, for example, Garland took 27 shots and Karras LeVert took 9, and they played about the exact same minutes. And so if it's a criticism, so be it. And we can go back. I don't need Darius Garland to take 27 shots, guys. I'm sorry. That's too much for your lead guard. So I think at times I've seen in the past 6-8 games, you look at it, Garland's shot attempts are the tops on the team, way more than everybody else. And I'm not sure if that's really the way you want that young man to start to play now. That's the way I feel about it.
Sam he's stewing. He's thinking hard. Sam has listened for about the last 7 minutes, and he's about to drop some wisdom.
That's rare.
He's about to drop some knowledge on us, Sam. A lot to process here, man. We talked about.
Well, first I wanted to say when Michael said we go way back, he speaks the truth, because I'm pretty sure when we met, I was filing my stories on chisel and granite, but
and you were 12 years old.
right. Yeah.
Sam, I'm glad that was the first thing you've said on the pod. That was a killer joke, man. That was great.
Well, it's all I could remember. But I think that, first of all, to Michael's first point, he hit the nail on the head in about the first quarter. The Cavs, they came out soft, which in a game like this, you kind of knew that they couldn't do that against a team with, two players who obviously are big time players that have won titles. And this is all new to guys like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley this time of year playing in these type of games. So, I mean, the defense was a little soft. And to Michael's point, they stopped doing that after the first quarter. They got more physical, and it turned things around. I mean, they outscored them by what, 13 points the rest of the way. So it just was a matter of it was a matter of them coming out. I think maybe a little bit of case of nerves and just not playing physical basketball. And this is the time of the year. Anybody who's seen the difference between regular season basketball and postseason basketball is that it's a much more physical game. The refs let you get away with a little bit more, and they just weren't ready for that. It was pretty evident. But once they settled down and started to realize that, and despite the fact Kyrie Irving had his best night of the season, I thought they did a lot of things right. So, and they missed some shots. I saw one of the Nets beat writers tweet out, the Cavs are getting some good looks. They're just not knocking them down. And that's what usually happens on the road in the postseason. Your star players like the Garlands and the Mobleys are going to play well. Kevin Love, you could see he's been in this situation before, had a nice game, 14 points, 13 rebounds. But you could see other guys just had not been, obviously Isaac Okoro had not been in this situation, and it showed. He just was kind of running around out there for a little bit, and then they finally pulled him. As far as LeVert, look, I am willing to give that more time. He came here, he got here, then there was an all-star break. He got 2 games in before the all-star break, hurt his ankle, and I don't think he's been the same since he's injured his ankle, the same type of player we saw even in those first couple of games with the Cavs. So I'm willing to give the guy full training camp and kind of let him get acclimated a little bit more. He's kind of been thrown into the fire. So he's not been very consistent though. And they need him to be more consistent, especially Friday night.
Sam, what aside from KD and Kyrie, because those are the 2 best players on the court. And I've mentioned numerous times in basketball comes down to who has the best player in the court. And the Nets have the 2 best players on the court. I think Garland was the 3rd best player. Aside from those 2 factors, what was another factor in contributing to the Cavs loss? Was it Brooklyn's size or the fact that I didn't wear my Deion Waiters jersey during the game? I chose to go with my LeBron jersey. Which was the bigger factor? And
it was undoubtedly a combination of both. But I mean, the size. Even when the Cavs have Jared Allen, the Nets are the one team. When the Cavs came in with their 3 7-footers that they were rolling out at the start of the year, the Nets were the one team that could match them size wise. Obviously, and you have a guy 7-footer in the league who's the best 7-footer in the league in Durant. So they have good size. Claxton scored. They got, as John tweeted out, and I put in the column, that they just got way too many points in the paint. And part of that is the Cavs' lack of experience this time of year. Some of it, I think Michael's right. Some of it was kind of their defensive approach. And then obviously a big part too was missing Allen.
John, as you're watching this game and the Nets have this huge first quarter, I never really felt like the Cavs were out of it though. I mean, they shot terribly, and I never really felt the Cavs were out of it. Were you feeling kind of similarly?
After the first quarter, because the first quarter was demoralizing. You get down 20 points like that. That's a tough hole to climb out of, and they did. You got to give them 2 credits and 2 things. One, to Michael's point about not liking Garland attempting a lot of shots. While I agree, I also like to see that Darius has become a player now where he is not afraid of the spotlight, and he understands the moment, and he's going to take advantage of it. And he's tried to take over this game. You'd like to see a second person and a teammate to be right there with him. And I think that guy will be Evan Mobley at some point in time. I just think with Darius Garland's athleticism, it's already there. And so I like the fact that he kind of tried to take over this game, and he did for a little bit in that second half. But I also like as a total team effort in that second half where they chipped away a little bit here and there. And if they got a little bit more consistent on their defense, and if they got some of those easy shots that Sam mentioned, this game would have been maybe even a lot closer. I don't know if they were going to win it, but they could have cut that lead to 2 or 1. They may even be able to take a 2-point lead or so. We saw them do that just a few days ago when they were down 19, came back, took an 8-point lead, and then poof, it was gone.
Yep.
So yeah, they weren't really ever out of it. I never was convinced, even when they made these little mini runs, I was never convinced that they were going to actually take over. It just was the moment, I think, was too much for this young team.
Yes.
We kind of anticipated that. You're on the road, you're facing, champions and Katie and Kyrie. It's a lot to ask for. And I'm not disappointed. I'm disappointed in their effort in the first half, like Reg was talking about, but on to Friday.
All right, Reg. So what are some takeaways from this Cavs team, from Coach Bickerstaff? Like, what are some positives? And I want to start with you with that, because you're so fired up. And I think everyone is just, first, I mean, it's not technically playoff, and we're going to touch on that in a second, but what are some takeaways this young team can take from this? Almost like the Nets took them to school a little bit.
Yeah, they took him to school, all right. And JB Bickerstaff has got to take a lot of responsibility for that. As I said, as we started here with their first quarter approach and basically having their butts handed to them in the first 12 minutes. Now, again, Evan Mobley, really loved this young man, and he's going to do nothing but continue to excel, I feel. Now, the one thing, and I know he's a rookie, and it's hard, and Sam alluded to it, and John just alluded to it as well. I'm going to, though, continue, if I'm JB Bickerstaff and even Colby Altman and whomever else that you want getting in this young man's ear and the coaching staff, listen, man, be aggressive offensively. You got to be aggressive. We're going to get you the ball at the free throw line and down in the paint or on the block, and go ahead. Go ahead, be aggressive, make your move, because we need it. We got to have it from you. And there's no reason to worry about anybody else on this basketball team that is going to be talking about not getting shots, because you are. I would make that very clear to that young man, because I want him to get a touch virtually on every possession, quite frankly. And that's part of the thing I was saying about, and I don't want Darius Garland's terrific. Okay. I can't state that enough, but go back and look at it, guys. The last 6 to 8 games, 24 shots, most on the team, 27 shots, most on the team.
He's got to get him up before Sexton comes back. I
believe that's the way that this team is going to ultimately be. I know Darius can put the ball in the hole, and I admire that aggressiveness. But you saw it tonight, too. There are times he looked like he got a little bit uncertain when he got in the paint, gets himself up in the air. What happened? Bad pass, ball slapped away, deflected, turnover.
That's the one knock.
Clean that up. He's got to clean that up a little bit.
And do you, in your opinion, Reg, do you think the reason why he is that way? Because he did this during the regular season. Like, he'll go up and get stuck in the air and no one's there.
Yep.
He's trying to do too much. He's missing that second piece, a second player that he can depend on at a consistent rate. And there's no one else in this team that can be that way or be there.
Well, that's why I was just saying what I did about Mobley too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Give this man young more time. I don't care that he's a rookie. And I'm going to tell him that, Evan, we need this from you. Well, you might as well start it right now. You're not in a 1-game season, okay? And I know he's just coming back from injury as well. As Sam was saying about after a couple of games, Karis LeVert went down. So, this whole thing has been disjointed. I think we all can agree on that for many different reasons coming down the stretch here. I'd say for the last 5 to 6 weeks, it's been disjointed.
Yeah. Since the All-Star break.
Is that right, Sam?
The All-Star break with Darius Garland having the back issues. A lot of people, didn't know what was going to happen with that. So, yeah, it's been the fact that they're here and playing in these games and having an opportunity to get to the playoffs is pretty big. From the standpoint of, it's been, like I said, it's been clunky. The lineups, the rosters, the rotations have been kind of patched together a little bit. So hopefully that changes moving forward, because obviously the young core looks pretty special.
I'll say this, what I'm going to say next in one sentence, because you were asking me about positives too. And overall, I thought Kevin Love's play this year and accepting this role and coming off the bench has been a positive. But guys, Isaac Okoro cannot be a starting 2 or 3 on this basketball team. I'm sorry, he can't.
I'm with you all the way there.
Yep,
You cannot.
Totally
that
agree.
young man has got to come off the bench. I'm still, and again, now I'm appalled that they picked it. What is the NBA about, guys? It's about, quite frankly, 2s and 3s that put the ball in the hole. You went and selected a young man 5th overall. His calling card is on the defensive end of the floor in college. Come on now. Come on.
Well, he's not really even a lockdown defender.
No, he's not.
They put him on the
You're
best,
right. He's a decent defender. He's a
that's not-
decent defender, but he's not a lockdown defender. And a lot of Cavs fans think he is. And I just laugh when I hear all that. No, he's not a lockdown defender. But this young man is a liability on the offensive end of the floor, guys. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to bury a young kid. Sam, you know, that's not what I've done. I called the Cavaliers for 14 years. Saw a lot of young kids that, quite frankly, weren't ready down through those years.
That's
decade
a podcast.
and a half.
That's a podcast episode for a different day.
Right. I'm not trying to bury the young man. I just don't see it. You could try, well, I've had Reghi. He'll develop into an offensive player. Really? Really? If you think that, I'm sorry. I know it's only 2 seasons. I don't see it. I don't see it. He's not going to be an offensive player worthy of starting at a 2 or a 3 in the NBA. He's not.
You've been saying this since last June when we had a draft pod. And
that's right.
I remember the thing that Chase and I were talking about with you, and Kenny Roto was on it. And we said, you know, maybe he'll develop that offensive game. Maybe he'll be able to be that, you know, take that next step. Because at the end of last season, you started to see that a little bit from Okoro. It's like maybe a glimpse. But this year, it hasn't really been there. It hasn't been there at a consistent clip. And, you know, you'd like to maybe be that guy that he can sit in the corner 3 and knock those down. But, I mean, he kind of evaporated under the pressure, and he went right to the bench, only 13 minutes of play tonight. And that's not what
13 minutes of play. And so, again, to me, what are you saying there, JB? But you're saying he's not a starting caliber player in this league. And, again, whether you play him at the 2 or the 3, really, again, 2 of the most offensive dominant positions that we have in this league, right?
Yeah.
The 2 guard and the small forward.
You know who would look really good on the Cavs right now? Talking about that draft class? Tyrese Halliburton.
From Okoro's draft class?
Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton.
So we're getting way. That's who I wanted them to take. Go back and look at all, but that's who I wanted them to take. Take our, okay. Next year, to me, if Isaac Okoro is not coming off the bench as about this team's, I'm going to say 8th man, and playing in that 15, if things are going well for him, 15, 17, 18 minutes a night, something's wrong. Something's really wrong, because they got to
really
get
be playing
that
kind of the role that Chetty is playing, almost kind of that role, more consistent. But you know, you look at Chetty, 8th, 9th man, and that's kind of the role that I think Okoro is cut out for right now. But I think he's hit his ceiling offensively. I really do. I don't know where he's going to, unless he becomes like we talked about the other night, John, where he becomes like this Bruce Bowen type knockdown 3-pointer or
Andre Iguodala
shooter.
too.
I don't know. I don't want, and I said this the other night, let's see what he does next year, because Garland made a huge leap. I just don't know where you're going. If you have Colin Sexton and you have Karis LeVert, I just don't know where you're gonna find enough time for Okoro to continue this kind of experiment and give him that kind of a lot of, because this all of a sudden this isn't a team that's built around players who are growing. in the sense like, oh, we can afford to wait on this guy, because now they're kind of in win now mode with their, because they have such good young players in Garland and Mobley and Allen and a few of those others.
I know we'll talk about off-season stuff when the off-season hits, and we're not there yet, but you bring up a good point, Sam, because now you're kind of like, what are you going to do with him next year? It seems more and more likely that Colin Sexton is going to come back. And if he does come back, now you have the LeVert situation, and now you have Okoro. You don't have enough minutes for these guys.
You're just not going to have enough minutes. And I didn't mean to say they're not growing. I meant to say they're not.
Yeah.
They're not in developing. They're not developing.
Right.
This isn't the development stage anymore. They're now in the age where the season of their kind of existence here, at least this core's existence, that we're gonna see how far these guys take us. We're not bringing in a bunch of lottery picks anymore to develop. We're ready to make our move and make the next step. And I think that we all have seen there are long stretches out there where it feels like they're kind of playing 4-on-5, and it's nothing against him because he doesn't force anything, but it's just, there are times out there he's just running up and down the court. He's just like, well, we need a fifth guy, so you go play. And
he's just getting his
run up and down
cardio
the floor.
All right.
That's right. Sam, how about if I say it this way very quickly? There's no attention paid to him by the opposition defense.
None at all.
And that's the biggest thing at all. Doesn't that tell you, if you watch a game like we watch the game, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? There is
that tells
never any opposition defense they just allow him, whether it's foul line extended or in the corner where he likes to go. They'll just, guys, come on now. This is the truth. This 100%. They allow him to catch the ball on those spots on the floor because they absolutely zero concern whether he's going to shoot the basketball from there.
Because we have the potential rookie of the year inside and Darius Garland are on the outside. I'm going to buy all your Isaac Okoro stock. I want it all. I'm not giving up.
You're going to buy it?
I will take it all. Yeah.
You want to stay with this kid, huh?
I do. I liked him when we drafted him. I think there is a role. I think he look, Sam preached this all season. Anything that they're experiencing now is a bonus. Jeremy said on the pod on Friday, you're playing with house money, right? All of what they're experiencing now is just experience that they're going to grow into next year. Next year is when we can have some of these win now mode conversations. And I know we're fresh off them losing to the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn, who started a healthy KD and a healthy Kyrie.
It's not that they lost, Chase. It's the situations that grew for the reason that there was that first quarter embarrassment.
They lost by 7. And Kyrie didn't miss a shot until the fourth quarter.
I know. I put it on the tweet, so I'm not going to go back on it now. No. To me, when it was 40-20 after the first quarter, game over. I'm sorry. I know it's the NBA again.
Right.
But I called it for 14 years for 82 games a year. I understand that. Yes. But damn it, not this game, not against that team. That was done. Cavaliers don't have enough offense to get down 20, number one. And then you can all of a sudden now put the vice grip on Durant and Irving and keep them from continuing to play there. No, that game was over, man. Yeah. Cavaliers don't have enough offense for that.
I would never doubt your basketball prowess for knowledge. That was not my intent there.
No, I'm not. No, we're just having a conversation. It's all good. It's all good. That's the way I felt. I felt if for the Cavaliers to, one of those, if this situation comes up 100 times, this Cavalier team against that Brooklyn Nets team, I'm going to tell you maybe 2 or 3 times the Cavaliers will come back and win that. Tonight wasn't one of them. I already said you can't give up 40 the way they did it and basically get their butts drilled in the first 12 minutes and feel good about it.
And let's be honest too. The only reason why this game got close was when either Durant or Irving went to the bench, and it was mostly when Irving went to the bench because they threw Markkanen on KD, or they would double team him. That was the key. Double teaming Kevin Durant in that fourth quarter completely opened the door for them to make a run. when Irving was on the bench,
Like,
and they made a little run. That was the only reason why
I hear
this Cavs
that
team got close.
But in those moments where we needed Garland to execute and Kevin Love to hit a big shot and Rondo to put something, like, the Cavs were able to do what they needed to do when they needed to do it to get the game close, right?
They did it. Chase, it's also just showing too, they're just also missing, obviously they're missing Jared Allen, but they're also missing a piece. You know, they're missing that wing that can shoot, that can create, you know, that wing position that is so valuable and is so in demand in the NBA because everybody wants him, but no one can find him because he doesn't, they don't grow on trees. It's the hardest position to find in the NBA, and the Cavs needed that ever since the one left and went to LA.
Yeah. I'm an optimist. So I look at this game that honestly Reg, maybe they win 2 out of 100 times, maybe, right? Like, you look
That's
at
my thought, 2 or 3 of 100 in that same scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what are realistic expectations? And Garland showed that he does belong. Like, we knew that, but at this stake of a game, he balled out. He was able to finish around the rim, a little sloppy at times, but he did what the Cavs needed him to do. He showed that he is a top player in the league.
Terrific young player. There's no question about it. At one of the most important positions on the court. We saw a young Evan Mobley who still at times looks like Bambi on ice, right? Just, you can kind of like still getting his legs. You know, he learned a little bit like, oh, okay, playoff, a little more physical. Refs call a little bit differently. Great experience for him. You know, I didn't see him back down. No, it's just, again, go ahead and go get it, young fella.
Yep.
Go ahead. Don't worry about missing a shot as you go to the rim. Don't worry about that. We need you to take them. We need you to be aggressive. That's all I'm looking at is another terrific young player. Yeah. Thrilled the Cavaliers have Evan Mobley. Yeah. Thrilled. Be more, again, it'll grow, but there's opportunities for you to be more aggressive. I want him to just take them, especially offensively.
Yeah. So I thought there was, you know, some definite like frustrations with the game, but overall, hopefully sets us up for a game on Friday. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Sam, I want to get your opinion on the play-in tournament. I want to talk a little bit about this team, and then we'll look ahead to our Friday matchup against either the Charlotte Hornets or the Atlanta Hawks. Stick around, our playoff sprint. Halftime, we'll be right back.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Voorhees.
And I'm Brian Shaw. No, not the pitcher. We're the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast.
Formerly known as the Swing in a Tribe.
Don't have time to watch 162 games of baseball? We have you covered with recaps, stats, and analysis throughout the MLB season.
Subscribe now to Guardians of the Land MLB podcast and Press Play Podcast Network for all your Cleveland sports analysis.
What's good, everybody? My name is Taylor Vanderbilt, and I'm the host of the Full 40 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. On the Full 40, we talk about literally everything college basketball related. It could be women's, it could be men's, it could be recruiting, it could be the tournament. It does not matter. We cover it all. So check it out. Again, it's the Full 40 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Reghi, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Reghi and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey, everybody. I'm Gary. And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back with our Cavs on the Break playoff sprint here with the wonderful Dea, Sam Amico, John Sable, Michael Reghi. We're talking Cavs. We're talking their loss against the Nets. Play-in tournament. Sam, what are your thoughts on the play-in tournament? Do you like the not regular season, not playoff? Do you like what's going on right now? Are you a fan of a play-in tournament?
Yeah. You know, even though, I mean, this year I kind of wish that they didn't have it, because then the Cavs would have been guaranteed a spot.
Sure.
But it's grown on me. You know, I'm a traditionalist. I feel like, look, we already have 16 teams making the playoffs out of 30. Now you're going to throw in 4 more, you know, but I think that it really has kind of worked in terms of not so many people are talking about tanking anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, now you've limited that number. And I think it kind of keeps things, especially this year, all the way in the Eastern Conference. I mean, everything almost came down to the final day, you know, in terms of the standings and who's going to make the play-in tournament, who's got a shot. When a lot of times those last 3 or 4 days of the season are talked about, and not just the Cavs, but around the league, the teams that aren't getting in the playoffs, all you hear about is lose these last 3 or 4 games on purpose. And then, you know, you have the playoff teams who are playing these lottery teams in the regular season games, sometimes also wanting to lose on purpose because they want it, like the Bucks did on Sunday, for positioning. So then you have a game that people are paying big money to go to that is between 2 teams that both want to lose on purpose. They're trying to out lousy each other. And I think that this play-in tournament has kind of met its goal of keeping most of that conversation at bay while people are talking about, you know, if you're the Charlotte Hornets or the Atlanta Hawks, you're thinking, or the San Antonio Spurs, who didn't have a very good year. Well, we still got a shot to get in the playoffs, you know, and that's really all you want. But the one thing I will say that I don't like about it is you have so many teams that are in the playoffs, right? Already. Mm-hmm. You have more than half the league in the playoffs already. Mm-hmm. And now you're kind of rewarding incompetence a little bit, you know, in the case of teams that had a terrible season, such
San
as
Antonio
Spurs or the Pelicans. Although I don't want to rip those teams, but I mean, I just think in that
34 and 48,
concept,
Sam.
I'm tweeting it. Sam Amico ripping the Spurs and the Pelicans.
34 and 48, and you're going to get an opportunity now to be a playoff team if you win a couple, if you're San Antonio. I agree with you wholeheartedly on the tanking aspect, okay? But so I'm with you on that, Sam. But for me, that's the only positive of this thing. Guys, you play 82 basketball games over 6 months. And you, as Sam just said, you put 16 teams, 8 from each conference in over half the league. Now you want to have a play-in tournament to potentially let a 34 and 48, no offense, but that's the bottom line, Only giving you what the record, a 34-48 San Antonio team in if they're able to win a couple of games tomorrow night and Friday night or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Nah.
John, can I guess? John, can I guess
82
how you feel
games,
about
man. 82 games to get 16 teams. Isn't that enough?
John, can I guess how you feel about it?
I agree with both of you. And it's funny, if you were to give Greg Popovich some truth serum and you give it to him, what do you think he would say?
We don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
Bingo.
That's what Pop would say.
Exactly, because they don't. And this is the argument in professional sports in the state of 2022, because Major League Baseball wanted to expand. Players didn't want it. The owners did because they want the money. They want the expanded playoffs because there's more money at the box office or the gates. Players don't want it because it dilutes the product of the regular season. Thankfully, they didn't do it for the CBA. The thought was with the NFL, when they expanded, they were going to expand too much, and they brought it back when they added that 17th week season last year. There is a need for it. I get the need as a fan. I get it, but you're diluting your entire product. And that's a little bit what the NBA is doing with this play-in game. Yes, it tries to kill your tanking. Yes, it's giving other teams an opportunity to break in that may not be deserve it to get in there. At the same time, you're also now adding an intrigue to watching, 4 games to seeing where they're going to go. And this is a whole new format. So what are we going to do? To me, it's still confusing. There needs to be a better way of doing it. I think the execution, if they want to go this way, it's fine. It needs to be executed better. I think the system needs to be changed. I don't know how you fix it, but I think there's a way to make it a little bit better than what it is. Maybe there's a rule that if you're below 500, you don't deserve to be in the play-in tournament or something. I don't know how that works, because every year there's someone different. It's a mess in a lot of things. And I think the only way, think about this, if the Spurs win and they go in there and they shock the world, then we've got a bigger problem.
Really? Is it a problem?
Well, it is, because now it dilutes your regular season.
You've rendered the regular season an
meaningless.
82 game regular season meaningless.
I disagree. I disagree
because they've won 2 games. And what if they win 2 games because I don't even know, they're playing the Pelicans? Yeah. What if CJ McCollum and somebody else is hurt in that game? What if then they advance to play, say, Minnesota or the Clippers, and their main guys are hurt? You've completely diluted the meaning of the 82 game regular season. And you already hear casual basketball fans, my friends who are huge sports fans, say, let me know when the playoffs start about the NBA.
Yep. And that's the thing
now, because they say the regular season is meaningless unless you're a diehard fan, because everybody gets in the playoffs.
Well, Sam, look at the Cavs those 4 years when LeBron came back. The regular season was meaningless. They
LeBron said,
yeah,
he would sit there and we'd be in the little press conference area and he'd be like, talk to me in the playoffs.
The ongoing joke was during that free agency of those last 2 years of LeBron, the year before he left and the year he left, was that the off-season free agency was more exciting than the NBA regular season. Now, yet the ratings are still high. The social media interaction is still high.
Yeah. There you go.
Why do you need to mess with something that doesn't need to be touched with?
I don't know. I don't know what made them decide that, but as a guy who runs a website and everything's based on hits, I can tell you that my hits are considerably better during the off season than they are during the actual baskall season.
People love drama. They love transactions. They love trade chatter. They love everything.
Look, you guys are overthinking it.
If I had to do it all over again, I would start a website about Chase's haircut.
It looks good, doesn't it?
Okay.
I complimented on him when I jumped on.
Red,
Said, look at that.
You're overthinking it. Look, we get more competitive basketball. Plain and simple. That's it. Every time there's a high-end regular season game, it's like, playoff basketball in November. What's going on? That game was awesome. And we get more playoff caliber basketball. When you're not going to see JV squads going against each other in a play-in game.
Now here's a thought. And I want to pick all 3 of your guys' brains about this. maybe there's a little theory out there that thinking that 1 versus 8 matchup has always been so boring and so
It's
a
awful.
shoe-in that they wanted to narrow and reshape and kind of reform that 8th seeded
You're
team
telling
to
me
make it a
if the
little bit more
Spurs don't
competitive.
go on a run and all of a sudden they're a hot team, but they only won 30 games, that's not going to be a story, and it's not going to like, oh, look what Pop's doing with the Spurs. Oh my gosh, why are they doing so well? Like, that's going to be a story.
If they won a 7-game series, I would think it would be a bigger story.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but
yeah.
you know,
No,
so
I
I
mean,
went 2 basketball games after going 34-48, and you're going to give them a shot. You'll give them a shot against Phoenix, and probably not going to beat Phoenix.
Probably not.
But you're going to reward them after 34-48. And I like what John just asked me a few moments ago. I guarantee you, with that true serum in it, Greg Popovich would laugh and say, "What the hell am I doing? Still having to go on and coach a practice here for this team that I got this year."
I
Guarantee.
feel like he has truth serum quite often. I feel like he's one of the
Pop will tell you what. Yeah, he will.
Yeah, he
That's
has
right.
no problem with.
Do you
That's
guys
right?
Do you guys also think about this play-in tournament? Another reason why it was set up was because we've seen so many injuries in the last few years with these big name stars, and then you see these teams that are supposed to be perennial top 3 seeds that are hurt, and then they get maybe healthy midway through the season, and then this is a way to reward them to maybe tune up for the playoffs. I'm talking like Clippers in this play-in game with the Timberwolves,
like the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm talking about the Nets and the Cavs.
Nets,
I mean,
yeah.
It's like you're throwing out a life preserver for a team that is sinking because of unfortunate variables.
Yeah, I love it. You know what I don't want to watch? The Nets without Kyrie or KD. Like, no one wants to watch that in the playoffs. And so,
like I said, unless they play the Cavaliers, who turned DeAndre Jordan into the modern day Moses Malone tonight.
well, Chase, you don't want to watch that because you know who the Nets would be? They're the Cleveland Charge.
Yeah, not far from it. Yeah.
And so
I said Jordan, I meant Andre Drummond, guys. Apologies.
No.
To me,
Yeah.
2 mediocre guys that look
2
like
guys
Moses
passed the
Malone.
fry.
I learned my lesson at the first segment to try to correct you, sir. I'm never correcting you again.
Reg, they might as well be the
There's
same
a lot
guy.
of things you could correct me on, please.
No.
Yes.
No, so I think the thing that I don't like about the play-in tournament is that it's not regular season and it's not a playoff. So these stats are just in a void of like no like records. I don't see how.
Yeah. Do they go anywhere?
No.
Like, where do they go?
They're just stats for a play-in tournament. Like
Sam, is that right? Do these stats just go
Yeah,
in the
I'm
ether
pretty
like
sure
exhibition
they don't
game?
count towards anything.
nothing.
Oh, that's
They aren't
garbage.
included in the regular season
no.
stats?
No,
I don't think so.
No regular
Wow.
season, and they don't count in playoffs. That I
wasn't
think
aware
is
of
the
that.
biggest atrocity of the whole thing.
We should start a
Wow.
site. All-time play-in tournament leading
Should.
scorers.
Good drop there, Chase. I had no idea. I thought this would technically go in the postseason.
I thought it would go in the postseason, but I don't think it does.
Nope.
No.
Wow.
Well, now I really hate it.
All right, so I want to ask one more question before we get to the Friday night home play-in. I can't say playoff matchup. This is a question that I have a hard time finding the answer to, and I don't have answers to a lot of questions, to be honest, everyone. I know it's shocking to you all. What team does this Cavs team remind you of from NBA past? Is there a team that you're watching this Cavs team with a young, all-star point guard, a big man like Mobley, and like is there a team that we kind of are like fit the mold of, or like John's face is lit up? He has something.
Well, it's funny because I kind of have a feeling where Sam and Reg are going to go with this. And
I don't have an answer.
You're not going to say 97, 98 Mike Fratello Cavaliers, are you?
I was going to
That
say
made the play?
I was going to say them. Yeah, they'd be one
Wow.
of 2. And the only reason is not in terms of skill set, but just because of the way they were constructed with that roster size. They had so many big guys. They had the Kemp Topico, Zadrunas, and then they had Brandon running the point, which was basically a Garland.
No. That was Brevin Knight ran.
Or Brevin Knight, excuse me. Brevin Knight. Yeah. Brandon was actually gone the year or
He
two
was.
before. So I think there is kind of some similarities there. I think this team is way more talented. Obviously, Garland is way better than Brevin Knight was, but I think the way that it's constructed in terms of like roster numbers and the height reminds me of that.
Mhm.
We got it.
We had Mike Fratello on our the podcast with my brother earlier back in December, and he said that he's like, this is the team that I coached. That's what he said, but it's so true. I see that a little bit similarity there. When the Cavs were clicking, when Jared Allen and Darius Garland were clicking those pick and rolls, I would see Price and Doherty on that all the time. I got reminiscence of that too. But to me, there is no really similarities between all those guys, but I do see something there a little bit. Now, obviously, this Cavs team is not what they were 2 months ago. But to answer your question, Chase, that's the first thing that comes to mind. If you're talking just Cavs teams, if you're talking other NBA teams in the past, I'd have to think about that.
Sam, do you have an answer? Because I thought of one as he was talking that I just kind of want to share, but I want to get other people's opinion. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, I mean, they do in terms of the excitement around the team and the way that they've kind of surprised and kind of in similarities. This going way back to that 88-89 team that went 57-25. This team's not as good as that team was that year, but they have some similarities with kind of, two big guys who were very good in Allen and Mobley, and those teams obviously had Doherty and Nance. You had a good big guy coming off the bench, obviously, in Hot Rod. This year's team, Kevin Love, what a rebound season was kind of that guy. And then obviously Garland playing kind of the more dynamic, more shooting more. He's the head of the snake in terms of scoring and all that, way more than Price was. Price was more of a had that ability, obviously a 4-time All-Star, but that's kind of the way that I see this team. It's a hard comparison though, because I mean every team has their own personality, regardless of the size. And the thing I liked about this Cavs team was that I was so terribly wrong about them when they rolled out 3 7-footers. And John and I were talking about this podcast at the start of the year. Nobody's doing that. What are they doing? Well, it worked. Everybody else playing small ball, and they went in the other direction, and we all thought they were crazy for doing it, but it worked. And I do think that they have some similarities to that 88-89 team that ended up losing on the shot to Jordan. But if not even that team, probably the year before, actually, because this team, in terms of age, is closer to the 87-88 team in terms of age.
Reg, is there a team?
I'll go with Sam Moore with those two. Sam, I agree with you. Then, as I mentioned to John, the last time the Cavaliers made the playoffs without a LeBron James on the roster, 97-98, Fratello's team. Sean Kemp, the 60-pound heavier Sean Kemp, although was still the driving force of that basketball team, and with all the youngsters with him, with Brevin Knight, with Derek Anderson, Vitaly Potapenko and that group. And Fratello got him to 47 and 35. And, Zadrunas came back that year from an injury. So in Kemp and Ilgauskas, with Z being able to come back, they had that interior size, like you were mentioning, that this team does. Different time of the NBA too, fellas. I mean, believe me, that's 25 damn years ago.
Yeah.
A totally different NBA than we see today.
All right.
So
I'm going to throw a team out to you guys. All right. And I just
ahead.
thought of this as John was talking, looking at the skill set, looking at the size, looking at how this Cavs team has kind of zagged to maybe a generation prior makeup of the team. What about the 2076ers? I'm thinking outside of Cavs. Obviously, you got the answer, Allen Iverson running point. They got size. They got Mutombo. They got Geiger. They got Tom McCullough. They even have the Tony Kukoc with the.
Hey, yeah, man,
careful.
you're really throwing out some names that I forgot about 20 years ago,
He's
but that's good. I like it.
Tony Kukoc with the Chetty kind of, like, I don't know. I'm trying
was
to
Kukoc on that team?
Kukoc, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
He was on that.
He was
99 2000 team.
You know who else is on that team was Tyrone Hill.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Tyrone Hill was on that team.
And so I'm just
trying
to
Eric
look at
Snow.
He was.
Eric
That's
Snow
right.
was
Eric Snow was on that team. That's correct.
Theo Ratliff. So
Theo
I mean,
Ratliff.
You start looking at kind of some of this
Larry Brown's bunch.
Yep, similar skill set, and the ball obviously flowed through Iverson and orchestrated all. I don't know. I see similarities in those teams, at least in the makeup. I don't know if that's lands anywhere, but I don't know.
It's cool. It's a cool thing.
Just wanted to thought.
I'm glad, if nothing else, I'm glad I came on this podcast because I got to relive the 2076 Sixers. Matt Geiger and Todd McCullough.
Hey, that's right. All right.
You
So
know what they called Matt Geiger in Philly? The Vanilla Gorilla.
That's right.
That is a top.
Remember that, Sam?
Oh, that's funny.
I do remember
never knew that.
Back in the old, they had left the Spectrum then. They were in the new building then. But yeah, they called Geiger the Vanilla Gorilla, the Philly fans.
Oh, wow.
There's a nickname for you.
Sam, what are we going to call you now? We can't call you that anymore.
Yeah, I guess that nickname's taken. All of a sudden, you're gonna have to come up with something else for me, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So Friday, the Cavs will either play the Charlotte Hornets or the Atlanta Hawks. John Sable, start with you. Who would you rather have the Cavs play?
Well, I think the Hornets always burn Terry Rozier, Shaker Heights, I think, right? Alum. Cleveland area guy, always comes back, always burns the Cavs. The Hornets always play well at the Fieldhouse. I don't know how they do. But I'm going to take my chance with Charlotte because I don't want to face Trae Young. I don't want to face that Hawks team because I feel like that Hawks team's playing really well right now, despite being in this silly play-in tournament. I think the Cavs match up better with Charlotte than they do against Atlanta. So, to me, I'm rooting for the Hawks to win or to lose. So the Cavs play them Friday. Charlotte's having a great year, though. I mean, they played really well. They ended the season like on a 3-game winning streak. They seem to be clicking. Gordon Hayward really hasn't been that big of a factor recently. Sam, I think, is he hurt, battling something?
He won't be playing I know he's not playing in the first playing game.
Bridges has been huge.
But Bridges,
he's been ruled out tomorrow night, but nothing beyond that.
Bridges and of course you got the whole LaMelo Ball. So I feel like the Cavs size wise and skill set wise match up a little bit better than Atlanta.
Reg, as I was talking with Sam and said that the Nets had the two best players, the top two. Garland came in at 3. You were nodding in agreement.
Absolutely. No question. No question.
If the Cavs play the Hornets, would the Cavs have the best player on the court?
I'll say yes.
Yeah.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
That's just like right now today here at 12:05 on this Wednesday morning. I'll say yes. That could change when they play on Friday night if they play.
I would say it was like a random November. I took Sam and Jeremy through like every team in the East about whether the Cavs was that what I did, Sam?
Yeah, it was every team in the East. Which team would have the best player? Boston or the Cavs?
Right. I put the Cavs against, and I think we all agreed that the Cavs have the best player if we were to play the Hornets.
It was like the 7-hour podcast. That's all I remember.
No, you guys were like
I'll go
obsessed
with
with Zach LaVine. I think you're like, no, he's like the best player on earth. You're like,
I don't think it was quite that determined, but yeah.
All right, Sam.
Well, I can do it real quick for you. I do not believe the Cavaliers, unfortunately, would beat Atlanta on Friday night. I do think they would beat Charlotte.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So Sam,
that you're in my court here too, Reg. That's 2 points for us.
Okay.
Sam, you like your chances against the Hornets?
Well, I'd rather have them play the Hornets than the Hawks. Yeah.
There's 3.
The Hawks just went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They really were probably without question, were one of the top 5 teams in the league after the All-Star break. So they know how to win when it means the most. They've been there before. This is what kind of shows you the value of playing in the playoffs. The Hawks were a young team last year, similar to the Cavs. They're still young, but they were kind of in the Cavs' position last year as kind of the NBA's most pleasant surprise. And then they got all the way to the conference finals. They won a game 7 on the road to get there.
That's right.
So that's not a team I want to face to play in tournament when it's when they're done.
And they got a lot. They got guys that can shoot the basketball too.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Kevin Herter can shoot the basketball, and I can just see Clint Capella rejecting about 7 or 8 Cavalier shots too, Sam, which bothers me.
That would be a scary, and that's probably, if everything goes according to, that's who the Cavs are going to be playing. So
probably,
I went to the barber and said, I want the Capella. And he just gave me the full Capella, and I meant just like part of it.
Yeah. I thought he gave you the Eminem.
Oh yeah,
real Slim Shady.
Yeah, right.
Marshall Mathers. We'll start calling you.
I've been called worse. That's for sure.
Okay,
that's for sure.
On this very podcast.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I too would rather play the Hornets. I believe Mobley and Garland would be better than any. I think the Hornets would rather have those 2 players than any of their 2 players, I believe.
Yeah. The Hornets, the Hornets don't, the only time that they've played well against us, and they're able to do that, is, as John had said, they did it both times at Rocket Mortgage, was if they speed up the game. That's the way they play. If we slow them down, that's when we have success against them, because we have the Cavaliers have size.
They better not speed up the game in the first quarter when the Cavs are half asleep like they were tonight.
Yeah. It would be odd. I feel like the Cavs have had a lot of competitive games against the Hornets this season, a lot of controversial games. I know that game in Charlotte where the refs blew all those calls, and the Cavs still won somehow. We were up like 15 or so with like 2 minutes left, and then there was was there another lane violation bad call in that Hornets game? Because that was an awful lane violation call that people are just overlooking in the game tonight on Rondo when we were down 6. There was like 30 seconds left.
I think that was a bad call, but the game was over at that point.
Yeah, the game was over. It had no bearing on the end result.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I know Bickerstaff was heated, but in Charlotte that happened to the Cavs. There was a questionable.
Oh, it was an out of bounds, and then Garland touched it, and the play was already dead.
Yeah. Either way, I think we had a podcast that night. We ripped the refs that night, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah. You even got fined, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I did.
I think anyone associated with the Cavs got fined. One more thing. Why doesn't Lamar Stevens get more minutes? Can one of you experts tell me a little bit?
Well, he's a garbage man, and I mean that in a complimentary way, but that's what he does. He's an energy guy, and he's not a big energy guy like a Tristan Thompson in terms of actual size, but and he's not, he's just not a fundamentally. He's not going to be hitting threes for you, and sometimes you need to spread the floor. He's one of the last guys on the roster who's going to do that. He's kind of an undersized center almost, but he, a lot of times he'll make the most of his minutes. He's like you say, Chase. So that's an understandable question, but it just comes down to what he can't do. If he's limited in certain areas, that's going to cost him some time.
And I also
unfortunately, from an offensive perspective, remember what I said a few minutes ago about the opposition defensively, just basically eliminating Isaac Okoro was on the floor. They do the same thing with Lamar Stevens. You're not going to worry about if he's on the perimeter. Let him take any shot he wants, whether it's inside the line or outside the line. Again, no knock on how, kid plays hard, he'll give you something a little bit. Actually, if you're asking me, I'm sure it's going to come as a real shock to you. I would play him more minutes than I play Okoro.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
But that's the only guy though. That,
but he's, and that's, Lamar Stevens brings it every night. He's going to at least, you will know he's on the court. Put it that way.
Yeah, sure.
And
but
you
again,
don't
in the grand
so much
scheme
know
of things, he's a guy that, on a good basketball team is probably your 8th, 9th guy, right?
Right.
So you play him 12 to 15 minutes a night. And, you'd like the Cavaliers to get to a point that that's what he is on this team too. And then now you got something when you got a guy like him as your 8th, 9th guy.
Yeah, the depth issue with this team is a problem when you have him getting a lot of minutes, and he is an offensive liability.
Absolutely.
Not to mention, guys, he is a liability when it comes to matchups. He doesn't match up well against this Brooklyn team. I mean, he just doesn't. The only thing I would say is, I think he'd defend Drummond inside better than Mobley, but that's because Allen's not there.
As I brought a little bit earlier, guys, somebody's got to do something about this Bruce Brown thing. I'm sorry, 18 points again tonight, 9 boards, 8. Come on now. And
again, now,
if you were taking something away as something that I would use the term at least somewhat significant away from Durant and Irving. Okay, I'll be, but we know we've discussed that ad nauseum. They're not doing that, and now you're going to let Bruce Brown go for 18, 9, and 8, and every one of his they get him the basketball. He just flashes into the paint, right? Get him the basketball, foul inside the foul line. He goes to the rim. Okay, no, you just can't allow that to happen from Bruce Brown and actually tell yourself you got a shot to win a basketball game. 18, 9, and 8 for Bruce Brown.
We've come full circle on the Regia meter. Let me tell you, man.
So. This is exactly where I began. You're right.
Yeah, when you have a Bruce Brown and Andre Drummond having a night that they had tonight, killing the Cavs like that.
Don't forget Nick Claxton too, John.
That's true. Yeah, it came right off the bench.
Nick Claxton, 6 of 6 from the floor, 13 points and 6 boards. Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah,
I actually thought he had a better game than that.
With Drummond, Claxton, look at those numbers. I just gave you Browns. Look at those numbers with those 3 guys.
Well, those 3 guys combined for 40.
How the hell are you remotely even going to think about winning a basketball game with those 3 guys doing that to you?
And those 3 guys combined for 47 points.
That's correct.
It's asinine. Those guys should not be burning you that way.
Nope. I don't care how much you're again, you can concede everything you want to. But we, or go like I said, go. But wait, you can't. You're not going to curtail or do anything significant with Durant and Irving.
Mm-mm.
That's obvious.
Only
but again,
thing,
so now you're going to let those 3 guys, what'd you just say, John, combined for 47 points and do it on close to 60% shooting? Come on, listen. It's not conceivable that you can win a basketball game that way against that team.
The only thing I thought with Claxton was, that's why they traded Allen, because they knew they had Claxton, and it was I don't know.
Could I say something about Jared Allen? You even put me on a timer for 30 seconds here.
Go.
Very disappointed in this young man. Very disappointed. He needed to be on the floor tonight. Now, I don't know if that's a team thing, and let me do my disclaimer. I'm not about to sit here and tell you that I am, know the pain tolerance level of athletes, men and women. Okay, I'm not, but this has been 20 basketball games now and over 7 weeks with a fractured finger. Get a foam splint on that thing and get on the floor, Jared Allen. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Smoke a cigarette at halftime and get out there.
What are we doing here, Sam?
Jeez.
No, I think that those situations often, at least in today's NBA, are the team decisions.
Well, it's a wrong damn decision.
Right. I think, they think, well, you know what? I don't know this for a fact, it's speculation, but I think that it's, we're not going to beat the Nets even with Jared. Let's save him for this other game. Let's give it another game.
You're telling me you're definitely telling me he's going to play Friday night. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm thinking.
I got my tweet ready,
thinking,
Sam.
yeah.
I got my tweet ready.
Yeah. Well, no, but I'm just saying.
Per sources,
I think that the teams protect the players more than the players protect them. So I think that if it were up to the players, they would play injured a lot more. But now they have, look, I mean, years ago, the NBA team's medical staff was a guy with ace bandages and a bucket of ice. Now they've got like 7 doctors on these teams that, our medical staff says he shouldn't be ready to go, or coach is like, I've got to check with the medical staff. And to me, I think it's ridiculous.
Well,
I think you're holding guys
I'm
out
old school, old curmudgeon, old school. Guilty.
Yeah, right.
Guilty. I'll take that. That's fine.
Yeah.
He's got to play on Friday night. He should have played tonight.
Well, I was old curmudgeon, old school, and when I was 12, so nothing's really changed. But anyway,
what I don't get is he chose not to have surgery on that finger, correct?
That's correct.
Well, we're told. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
So is it easy to assume here, guys, that when they decided not to have surgery, he chose not to have surgery from what we were told, that they thought this was going to heal up faster and it didn't? And
it seemed like it would be a faster return. Yeah.
Or did that give him greater case to say, well, I guess I'm shut down for the season then?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know because I'm not going to have surgery.
He doesn't strike me as a guy that would do that, especially
He
his
seems
personality.
like a guy that would play.
Again, I don't know the young man.
Right.
I don't know the young man. And so again, I'm pain tolerance level, every athlete, male, female, you got to decide that for yourself. But, again, this is a finger, gentlemen, a finger. Foam splint can be put on it.
Especially
I gotta have you out there, man.
Especially your non-shooting hand.
You are an integral part, a huge piece of this basketball team. I would think. Couldn't agree with you more, Sam, about what you said, and I know you're right. But you know what? Again, here's old school curmudgeon Reghi. Mm-hmm. If I'm Jared Allen, I don't give a damn what you're telling me. I'm playing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Doctors,
I think
I'm playing.
Sometimes
I
they
take responsibility for it. I'm playing.
Yeah.
I guess I did that, but that's pie in the sky stuff anymore, isn't it?
Worked well for Baker.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Too soon.
All right. Well, I think we better kind of start wrapping things up, or we'll be here until the game starts on Friday. We could just talk. We could talk all week. It's been lovely.
Bad thing.
It is. It has been.
What else you got going on?
Love it. Oh, just Good Friday service and Easter week.
Sure.
Not a whole lot. That does it for this wonderful episode, a playoff sprint edition of Cavs in the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Shouts to Michael Reghi, John Sable, and Sam for joining the show, talking about the game. Thank you so much for coming on. Make sure to follow us at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. You can follow Sam and Amico Hoops, catch his works and writings and breaking news at Hoops Wire. You can catch John Sable on Sable Brothers on the Baseline right here on P3. And do you want to tease who you teased me with today? You want to drop that now if they're still listening 70 minutes in?
You'll like this one, Reg and Sam. We interviewed the legendary Phil Dawson today.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah. He is
So
a
that'll be
legend.
coming up on the new edition of the Sable Brothers
That's
of the
cool.
Baseline podcast
That's really
coming up
cool.
next week.
Yeah.
Phil was great, by the way. Gave some great Brown stories and some harsh comments to a former Browns general manager. I'll leave that a little tease there for you too.
Nice.
Follow John on Twitter, John@John_Sable. And finally, Mr. Reghi on the R&R podcast with Kenny the Roadman Rhoda. What you guys got cooking over there in R&R, Reg?
We're going to go up next week, early in the week. We just one dropped Monday morning, yesterday morning.
Yep.
So our next one will be a week from now. And of course, it'll be a lot of the Cavaliers either starting the Miami series or the wind up to their season. So that's what's coming up next.
Follow Reg on Twitter @Michael Reghi. Guys, thank you so much. This was a ton of fun. And we will catch you all Friday evening, hopefully after a Cavs victory.
Beautiful.
Hey, it was a lot of fun, guys.
It was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
appreciate you having me, guys.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.